You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited about today's episode because we are talking about something that is so near and dear to my heart. It's my kids. A few weeks ago on my personal Facebook page, I posted that I needed advice on how to gentle parent my preteen. If you have been following me long enough here on the podcast or on social media, you know that I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. And both of them are too quickly for my taste sometimes, veering into teenage years. Not only can I see the physical changes in their bodies, I also see the changes in their demeanors, their temperament, their attitude. And sometimes it's a little bit too much for me. I can't handle it. And so I wanted to bring on an expert to help me work through some of the anxieties I have about parenting teenagers. So today I'm talking to Amanda Morgan Henry, a licensed clinical social worker with 20 years of experience in various areas of social work. She has expertise with parents and teens that primarily comes through her work with foster care youth and in her former family therapy practice. She is currently a PhD student, and her research interests include African-centered approaches to parenting in Black families and the elevation of Black motherhood. So without further ado, let's get into this topic. So welcome to the podcast, Amanda Morgan. How are you doing today?
I am well. I'm ready for this conversation. I'm good. Happy
Good.
Tuesday.
I'm just going to give everybody a brief summary of how we got here because we've known each other a long time. We used to be running buddies.
Yeah.
But now, the way we got to this conversation is that I posted on social media. I was jokingly, I was kind of half joking, half serious. That how do I gentle parent my preteen? Because he's just driving me crazy. He's going through these changes as he's 12 years old. He just turned 12. He'll be 13. And I just noticed changes in his behavior and his demeanor. There are still, parts of him that are my sweet little boy that I love so much, but I also see him changing. Yeah. And so it is hard for me because my experience with raising kids and even being around kids is 12, right? The age of my son. And right. I've always said, I don't really relate to teens like that. And we can get into why later, but you responded, and I know this is your expertise. You have workshops on this, but why don't you tell everybody you responded to my post.
Yes.
And gave me some advice. And I was like, okay, we need more advice. And so I decided to ask you to be on the podcast, and you graciously agreed. So why don't you start off by telling everybody, a little bit about your background and, your interest in teens. I know you have a personal interest in teens, but also professional experience dealing with them. So tell everybody about your background.
Sure. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I have 20 years or so experience with in social work, but mostly with foster care, working in foster care and different roles in foster care, all of which connected with teenagers, which people often are like, it's the hardest. I hear it all the time, hardest group or age range to deal with to raise and to work with behaviorally. I also had a private practice for about 5 years, a private therapy practice. And I had a ton of parents come to me saying, fix my kid, do something with this. Look, just here, do something with this child. And so I learned a lot from all of those parents because I saw a pattern in the conversation across parents. And that's what prompted me to create the workshops that I used to do for groups and things like that specifically about teenagers. I definitely have a teenage nephew. He just graduated from high school yesterday. And so do have personal, but I like to empower parents and to have better relationships with their teenagers. It's hard, but not as hard as people think. And so I like to give people tools and strategies. And every time a parent would come to me and say, fix my kid, I'm like, no, sis, no, brother, you sit down. I'm gonna help you. You go there with your kid. I can't do it. They live with you. And so, so yeah, so I love talking about this topic particularly. It's
Oh
fun
my
for me.
gosh. All right. Well, then let's jump into it because I
Yes.
need all the tips. You can fix me so I can have a better, and I like the way you phrased it, having a better relationship, because that's different than being a parent, right? I mean, it's different than how do I parent my child better? And if you
Absolutely.
think about it as a relationship, as you think about other relationships you have, then I think you kind of look at it a little bit differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I try to impart. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
So what are some common mistakes that parents make? I know I'm one of them. I know I make mistakes. I can identify mistakes I make myself. But what are some common mistakes you see across the board that parents make when they are trying to raise teenagers?
So I try to capture these mistakes in like these little like phrases or these little caricatures, you know. But before I say that, the first thing is parents need to give themselves some grace,
Okay.
particularly if you've never parented this child at this age. And so it's like people will say, I've never parented before. I'm a new mom. I'm a new dad. I just had a baby, right? You're going to say that every year because you've also never
Yes.
parented a 5-year-old and you've never parented a 13-year and you've
Yes.
never parented. It's the same as you. You've never been 40. You've never
Right.
been 50. You've never been. And so relax, first of all, give yourself some grace.
Thank
You
you.
are not supposed to know it all, and no parent can parent alone at all. Like you're always going to have some help from somewhere, teachers, doctors, whoever, grandma, auntie. Somebody is going to, it's always important to know that the village is important. And so don't think I have to know it all myself. You don't. So just that's number one, because I see parents are like, I'm doing it wrong. And I'm like,
Yeah.
relax, you're not doing it wrong. It's a learning process for everybody. So
Yeah,
that's number one.
I'm glad you said that because I think I posted that I still feel like a new mom. Like even
Every
though my
year.
kids are 12 years old, I'm like I've never raised a 12-year-old before, so I don't
Exactly.
know. So in
Every
a lot
year.
of sense of the word, I am a new mom.
Every
So
year.
go ahead.
so
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 give yourself grace. I like that.
yes, it's good yourself some grace. So I try to capture them in a couple of phrases. Here, so the first one is the not like me parent. So I know
Mhm.
you mentioned that your hubby had some questions, right? That
Yes.
he threw in here for you to ask as well, as he should have. And the not like me parent is the one who says, oh, this is how I grew up, and I don't want my child to do that or experience that or go through that. And the reality is, they're not in the same situation as you
Right.
already because they don't even have the same parents as you. So
Right.
already they're in a different situation, right? And we don't think about it like this, right? And
Right.
so if we're so busy looking back here, we're not looking this way.
Looking
And
ahead.
so,
Yeah.
yes. And so we have to refocus. They're not going to be like, if you focus so much on what they should not be, you focus less on what you want them to be. And
Mm.
so the motivation for you, I think all parents should sit and think about, wait a minute, what am I trying to get? We're gonna talk about that too. Just what am I trying to get? So they're not like me, or I don't want them to go through what I went through. Okay, well then they won't because they're already not in the same year, generation, time frame, era. Like they're already not where you were. Okay. So then there's the left.
Wait,
I'm
can
sorry,
I
go
say
ahead, go ahead.
something?
Yes,
No, I
jump in.
think what you said is interesting. One thing you said is that you shouldn't parent from what you don't want them to be, but parent from what you do. And that's so telling to me because that's exactly what is at the forefront of my head. Like I
Absolutely.
see all of the ways, all of the things that can go wrong. And I'm trying to parent from that perspective. Like, I don't want you to be on drugs. I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to do
Uh-huh.
that. Instead of parenting from the perspective of what I do want them to be. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're not the only one. No worries. I've heard this all the time, right? So it's always the big ones, right? don't get pregnant, don't do drugs, don't do don't have a baby, don't all the things, right? Don't get
Right.
arrested, don't all the things, right? Okay, so that's the first one. The less to do parent. There are parents who think my kid is big now. I can step back and do less because they don't need me to do so much.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, I've heard this and I agree. People who can stay home with their kids always want to do it when they're little, when they're babies, because I don't want to send my kid to the daycare because they can't tell me if something happens. When you should stay home is when they're teenagers. Send that baby to the daycare. That baby all right. You need to be around for this teenager who is freely roaming the earth without you and can get into all kinds of things. I need you to be available for that. That's when you should pour all the time and the energy into it. So don't think because they're big and they can fix a meal now, you ain't got to cook for them and they dress themselves and they do their own thing, that you can step. No. That is the time to be more attentive in a different way, and we'll talk about that, but be more attentive. Your parenting is not over. I see it all the time. People like, they're big now. Whew, I don't have, no. They just have big-ish different things. It's a shift, and we'll talk about the shift, right? It's a shift. The other parent is the umbrella parent. I'm going to shield this kid from everything possible. I don't want that to happen, and I don't want them to experience that because maybe I went through it. It was hard. How will your kids ever learn how to manage anything if they don't have to deal with anything? Now, I've had parents, you see on TV, I don't know anybody who did this personally, but you see it on TV as an example all the time.
Right. Parents
who don't want to explain too young to their kids about death. Like the dog dies, the pet dies, and they're like, oh God, let me replace the pet. What? Death is a part of life. That's a natural thing. Everything can be explained to someone at age appropriate, levels and ways, and should be. Shielding your kids doesn't prepare your kids to handle things, right? And I'm not saying they should be all up in your business or they should know every detail of everything that's going on. But children have at every age, even the young ones, but definitely the teenagers. They know something is awry, and parents often say, "Don't worry about it." They're like, "I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're bothered. Something is wrong." And kids, even teenagers, the first thing kids do, we all did it. I did it. Everybody I know used to do it. When you see that your parents have something going on, and you don't know what's going on, you think it's about you because they're self-centered. Their brains aren't big, so they think everything's about them. So they also think I did something wrong, and they may not say that, but they're internalizing something's wrong. Did I do something wrong? Is it my fault?
Right.
It is a number. Yeah, go ahead.
I think these are obviously great observations. And I'm just like, wow, you just reading me from top to bottom. I think one of the things that makes it difficult to talk to children is you have put yourself in this relationship where you're the parent and you handle the difficult things and you don't want them to worry about difficult things either. Sure. And then the other thing is, how do you have it's just awkward to have difficult, and I'm just not talking about death or hard times. I'm talking about sex and drugs. And those are hard conversations to have with your child. And you want to tell them things, but then you feel like if you expose too much of who you are or who you used to be and how that affects how you think and how do you know all these things, then they're going to look at you differently.
Yes.
And that's going to shape their opinion of you, which is obviously not it's not the goal, but it's also not the focus either, right?
Guess what? So, yeah. Your child gonna walk out of childhood with an opinion of you, regardless of what you do. We know that because we all have opinions of our parents and how they parented us. It's gonna happen automatically. So don't spend too much time worrying about that part. It's gonna happen.
So we're all gonna do things that will require our kids to be in therapy, no matter how good you are. Okay. Well, how do you make sure that you are using your child, your you don't let the baggage or the trauma or whatever from your childhood, how
Yeah,
can you use that in a productive way instead
absolutely.
of using it in a way that's harmful?
Sure. So before I answer that, there was one other thing I wanted to say because you were alluding to how do you share? How do you share? And what do
Right.
you say? Like there was one more common mistake I see that's connected to that a little bit. That's
Yes.
the BFF parent. We
Mm.
are not our children's best friends. I know people, I see it all the time. People say it. I see it. I've seen it in therapy with kids and their parents. And it's like, you are an adult. As an adult, you are at a different developmental stage than your kid. They cannot give you what a friend should give you at your age. And so pouring your whole self into your kid, saying, this is the only person I'm focused on. This is my friend, this is my BFF. That's not healthy. I'm gonna go ahead and say that because everybody needs balance.
Right.
Everybody needs what they need at their age. And it also puts something on, it gives a responsibility to
Right.
kids in a way that's like they can't return that. And I personally, in my opinion, don't know that it's fair because they're trying to figure out their own development right now.
Yeah.
So parents who overshare and tell them about everything, they have their own life. It's not, and that's a thing we'll talk about too, them having
Yeah.
life. So that BFF, that's not appropriate developmentally.
Yeah.
If you walk into some gray waters there. When
I
you do that.
agree. I agree. And you see this thing on social media, and I haven't seen it with regular people that I know, but I have seen it with celebrities where they'll be like, my teenage son is my BFF, my best friend. And I'm just like, how? What? What
Go
kind of
get you a
best
friend. Go
what
get
kind of
you.
relationship? You need better friends in your life.
You are
Yeah.
not best friends. You are friendly, but you are
Yeah.
not their friend. You have a role. That leads me to the point you were asking in the next thing. So I like to share. I try to encapsulate things in ways people can remember, and so it's three things, and it's gonna cover everything you already asked about. So, is know your role. First of all, know your role as a parent. Know your kid, because while there are some similarities across this age range, your kid is very unique. Know your kid and know the goal. The goal. What is the goal of this parenting thing? What is the goal of parenting teenagers in the first place? It is to prepare them for adulthood. It is not for them to remain your sweet boy. I know that's hard for a lot of people. They will not remain your sweet boy. He might be in there somewhere, but he's gonna be a man in 5 minutes. Let me just say, 5 quick minutes.
Right. Right.
Hey, I literally posted on Instagram yesterday this picture of me at my nephew's kindergarten graduation with his little cap and gown on, and that felt like 5 minutes. Let me just say. And so, yeah,
I'm gearing myself up for that. I'm not ready. Like people are like, oh, it goes quick. I'm like, I'm not ready for it to go quick. But at the same time, when he's getting on my nerves, I'm like, when is it? when are we gonna get there? But so you mentioned the three things, like know your role, know your kid, and know the goal. Is the goal the same for every parent, or is that the goal to raise an adult, to get them prepared for adulthood? That goal should be across the board for every
that's
parent.
the end result across the board.
Right.
That's the end result across the board. But back to the point earlier about the focus, right? So if you're so focused on, you're focused on them not doing things, then you're not focused on the goal. You're focused on keeping them from doing things. And what happens in that is that you end up sometimes not really preparing them because you were focused on something else. And so the goal, though, that's the outcome, a productive adult. The goal is relationship. So let me backtrack to know your role, because not just the BFF parent, not just that, but your role is to get your child to adulthood. It is not this is gonna sting for some people. It is not to save them from drugs. It is not to keep them from getting pregnant. That's not the goal.
Right.
Those are things along the way. But the goal, where you're headed, or your role, is to get them to adulthood and to be the type of person you want them to be? This is the question I always ask parents, and most of the time they're like, oh, I didn't think about that, right? Because they're scared. They're parenting out of fear. That's the thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What type of adult human do you want your child to be?
Right.
Think ahead. Don't think about 12-year-old. Think about 21-year-old who is living life out here in the world on its own, probably in college, maybe living with some friends, or I don't know, whatever they're doing. When they have a situation that they're in and you are not there and they are an adult, have you given them the character to make and the things to make a decision for themselves?
Yes. That's
Have you given them that? Because that's what
Yeah.
they need to have. And this is the time. This teenage thing is all about the back and forth. I call it tug of war, the tug of war of getting them to learn how to make good decisions. Because ultimately, that's it. You want them to, when I'm not around you, I want you to do the right thing.
Yes.
I want, when your friends are bullying this kid, I want you to walk away and not join them. I want you, you know what I'm saying? When your friends are like, we're going to do this, man, I'm not into that. I'll catch you tomorrow. I'll see you later. You want them to make good decisions. And so sometimes they don't get that because you're making the decisions for them all through their teenage years. They don't learn how to make them for themselves. And it's like by mistake. You just don't think about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, that's a lot. It's a lot because when you start thinking about what you want your child to be. And I think about that. Like when I talk to my husband, I'm like, I do want them to go to college. I want them to be smart. I want them to be good with money. But ultimately, I want them to be kind, respectful humans who make good decisions. That's ultimately, and I feel like if there are those things, then the other things will come and can be taught, or they can learn it on their own later.
Right. So some of that is character and some of that is skill.
Right. Okay.
Whether or not they manage money, whether or not they have good study habits, whether or not they, that kind of thing, are motivated. Some of that is character. Some of that is, I got to teach them how to have good money skills. I have to show them how to do that. And what parents do is like, this is an adult thing. You don't have to worry about it. And I'm only talking about teenagers. Little people, elementary school, sure. Be a kid. Don't worry about this. Right. Yes. But when you start to get like to 14, 15, where they can work, especially when they can work, they can have a little job, part-time, summer job, something. Yes. Show them how you handle the finances in the house. It's not a secret, is it? Like most parents are like, this is the adult business. How do they learn? They learn from you. They ain't gonna learn that from school, right? And so when for them to become kind and thoughtful and the things you said, they have to see that. They learn from what they see you do. Not so much what you say, not so much. They listening, but really they're gonna follow your lead. I mean, we all as adults, right? I know you can think of something that you do just like your mama, and you don't know how you managed to be that and do that. She didn't say, you go do this just like me. She never said that, but you just like it, right? It gets into us because of our interaction and what we see, and we soak it into our brains, and we don't necessarily know that we're soaking it in, but we do. And then we show up just like it later, like, oh, I do the same thing. I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm super organized. I had to organize a business for a point. It didn't occur to me how organized my mother was until I just stepped back one day and she was organized. I said, is that where it got from? Like my sister's the same way. We're all the same. I'm like, oh.
It's in your DNA. You've learned it. Yeah.
I watched her do it probably. I just watched her and I watched her do it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's soaked in. And so that also aligns with knowing your kid. Let me just say. So first of all, I can't get into, we don't have the time to get into what's happening in their brain fully. What I will say, because you brought up drugs and sex and these things that are important conversations, right? First of all, your kid's brain is doing flips and gymnastics in this age range, like literally. And so a lot of parents don't realize that. So when your son is coming, if it ain't started already, Sonia, this boy gonna eat like
He already has.
okay.
He had 3 meals for dinner. I was like, you just
where you
had
putting
this.
it? That's what
And then you had
where is
this.
it going?
And then you had like, this is the 3rd meal. And he
They
always
can't
caps
help
it
it.
off with cereal. Like when all else
Cereal,
fails.
yes. Oh, I want cereal for dessert or whatever.
That's
Snack,
his dessert. He capped it off with a bowl of cereal. I'm like, we just had dinner. He was like, I'm still hungry. How? But go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you how, because there's this little thing in the middle of their brain called the amygdala, and it is growing exponentially. And it makes them hungry and horny. They can't help it. I know you weren't ready for it. I just wanted to
wasn't ready. Hungry, I could deal with. Horny, I don't.
I mean, he's 12. It's gonna,
it's coming. It's coming. I know.
But I'm saying that to say they don't know why they hungry, because they can't. Their brain is literally making them hungry. They don't know that either. They just know they hungry. And I've heard parents say he's not hungry. He ate 3 meals. He is hungry.
And that was a big revelation. Somebody said that in the post that I did, and that was a big revelation to me. I'm like, wow, he's hungry, like for real. Because honestly, you want to, because the amount that they eat, you want to say that they're greedy. Like, are you greedy? You just
they feel hungry, and they need it. It's nourishment. Their brain is doing for them now what their brain did as a baby. Think about it. Infants sleep hours on end. Their brain is growing. That's why they're sleeping, because their brain is doing things and it needs rest to develop. It's the same. It's also why they sleep all the time, because they are tired. It is making them hungry, horny, and sleepy. The other part is the frontal lobe, this part of behind your forehead of your brain, is where all the decision making happens. This is the decision making center.
Okay.
This part does not fully develop until 25.
25. Jesus. That explains a lot, actually.
It explains a lot.
It's the last part of your brain to develop, that frontal lobe.
Part. Exactly. So all the other parts that deal with hearing and speech and eye and sight, they got all that, right? They got that part, right? It is also developing abstract thought. So the older they get, the more in elementary school, they're concrete. It's like, no, he said this to me and I didn't like it and it was wrong. They can't see that, well, sometimes situations are complicated. They don't know that. Now that they're getting older, they're starting to realize, okay, that's a little more complicated. It's not that simple. Things are not that simple. And it develops. So you've got this 12 to 25, 12 to 18 period of time where it's adding on. It's growing as it goes. As they get older, they get a little bit more and they get a little bit more. And so here's the thing, because of that I tell parents, I want you to imagine tug of war, or not even tug of war. Your child you have a rope. Your child has, I usually do this in my workshop, like physically do this. I make somebody stand up. So like they have a rope. Your child has one rope, you have the other side of the rope, right? So from 0 to about 13, you're pulling the rope completely.
Right.
You are managing, you are leading, you are managing every aspect of their life. You're telling them no, yes, maybe, okay. Like you might give them little things, that they can decide on. Sure, you can pick what you want to eat. Sure, you can pick what you want to wear, whatever, right? But in general, you are managing their life.
Right. You're picking from the clothes that I bought and the food that I bought.
Picking from the clothes that I bought. That's right.
Right. But go ahead.
Right. 13, 12, 13, tweens to teens. It gradually, it's like you're still holding the rope, but they are gradually pulling it now. You're behind them. And you might pull it back like, not ready for that yet. No, not yet. No, you cannot get a tattoo at 14, maybe 16, maybe 18, whatever. But it's like, I'm gonna let you, okay, I'm watching, okay, no, don't, you can't, let me.
So you're using the rope to give them
you're guiding
leverage
from behind. Yes, you're giving leverage, you're guiding. And at the same time, you're like, hey, I would go left. You're telling them and you're giving them things, but this is the time where you need to help them grow their ability to make decisions for themselves. They need gradually more independence with guidance.
You said something earlier when we were talking about you go from, I forgot the word, but ultimately you go from managing them to
Guiding.
to guide. Yeah. Where it's not, you're guiding them versus telling them what to do.
That's right.
And so that's a huge, so how do you make that shift as a parent? Is it just little trial and errors? And how do you make that shift in your mind as a parent?
There are going to be tons of trial and errors.
Yes.
Tons of trial and errors. Well, first of all, it's age, right? And your child will let you know, because you just said your 12-year-old is already starting to behave a certain way and differently, right? Middle school is harder to me than like high school, right? Yes. Because they really don't understand what's going on yet, but they are ready to test all the boundaries and limits. If you've never walked through a middle school, child, the number of F-bombs that are dropped in a middle school, and it don't make no sense. They use it out of context. It's just because my mama not here and I can say this bad word now. What?
Yes. I have a funny story, because my son was in his room playing video games with his earphones on. I don't know what he said, but it was a curse word. It was like, this punk ass something. I said, what? I sat up in my bed like, what? And I was like, and I went into his room and he instantly knew why I was there. He was like, I'm sorry, Mom. And I was like, I appreciate that. Thank you. And I left.
And so you know that when you're not around, it comes out freely.
I was like, I know he cussed now. I done lost that battle.
Now. Yes. And some battles you shouldn't even be fighting. Like, he knew. So here's the thing. He knew he was wrong. He knew he didn't mean for you to hear that. He was in his own world, right? So that says he knows right from wrong. He knows respect. He knows he should not be cursing at adults. He knows, you understand what I'm saying? And so
right.
It's different if he just cussing out teachers and, that kind of thing. So some of the battles are, I don't know why parents fight them. I don't. One of the battles, I don't know, is hair. Okay. Now I understand that, or style. Let me say style, not hair, style. Now there are certain things you decide. It's up to you. You'll see parents who have. So here's the thing: parents often want their children to be like them. And the thing is, every child comes in. This is part of Know Your Kid. Every child comes into the world with their own destiny and their own personality. Yes. You definitely influence that as they grow, right? They're not your mini-me though. And so I had a girlfriend, hilarious. I'll never forget this story. She had kids very early. She was married at 18. She had her first kid at 18. They have 3 children together. And
her frontal lobe wasn't even done.
Wasn't even, child. This is why teen parents also. Girl,
should we even let them go at 18? Because I'm like, this should be 25 is probably more along the lines where we should be expecting better behavior. But I'm like, 25? That, like, why do we have them vote? Why can't they get guns? Why are they allowed to drink?
Very valid questions, because politics don't necessarily listen to child development experts. We just be like, listen, they're not ready for that, but they will send them off to war, right? And so it's like, I don't want no 18-year-old or no war. I don't want you deciding my life. I don't. And so, and not that they can't be mature, because some people go through very experienced things that grow them up quicker than others. I'm not saying, but in general, everybody's brain is not finished developing to 25, right?
Right.
And so my girlfriend has these 3 kids, very different personalities, right? So she said to me one time, she said, my middle one, listen, he is charming. He is so well-mannered. He has always been that. What he is not is smart. That child is not smart. And that's okay. He's going to give to the world what he has. And that's okay. I don't expect that one to come home with all A's. I don't even stress him about it. He's not the thinker out of the 3. He's not. And that's okay. I love him. He is who he is. But the other one ain't charming. He know everything, but he get on your nerves. This one going to charm his way through school. And I'm just okay with it. He tries. He gives his all. That's all that matters to me.
And that is knowing your kids. Yeah.
That's knowing your kids. Parents don't want to say, because they don't want to be known as a bad. They don't want to say what they really feel, because they don't want nobody to think they're a bad parent. This fear factor thing that we do as parents is we have to work on not doing that. Like, live in reality. This one might, you just got to know your kids, and you pay attention to who they are as people, not just this kid who, I got to make sure I get right.
Right.
That's a person, and that's how relationship comes in.
Yeah.
If you think about what we do as women, when we are dating, when we trying to get to know somebody, what do we do when we're trying to get to know somebody?
Right.
We want to talk to them all the time. We want to go out. We want to hang out. We ask the questions.
Right.
Talk to your child. Ask them questions. Because the thing is, they're developing something, and you don't know who this kid is. You never met this 13-year-old. You never met this 14-year-old. You don't know what last year did that maybe they feel differently about some things. Ask them how. Not shielding means, let's talk about what's on this news. What is your opinion of that?
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, this may be very elementary, but what kinds of questions should I ask them? But you mentioned the news. You mentioned like, oh, this happened on the street, or like, how do you engage with them, and develop a relationship, and you're still the parent, but you're finding out more about them, and you're also not being judgmental, right? You're not being like, ooh, that's wrong, or why you think that way. How do you have those conversations?
So it's not elementary, but it also, the answer sounds elementary, and it's not elementary. It's just be curious. Like, you talk to your girlfriends, you're like, girl, what's going on at work? Girl, what's going on at school? What happened? Like, have conversations. When they're little and they talk to you about the whole thing that happened on Paw Patrol, and you just like,
they talk
you don't
your ear
care
off.
what happened about Paw Patrol. I don't care, but I'm gonna be in this conversation like, I care about Paw Patrol. What? Really? Ricky Zoom had a red car? What? Like, this is how I talk to my nieces and nephews. I'm like, what? What he did? SpongeBob said what? Like, like that, you into it. And then parents get so afraid when they get older, and then the kids don't necessarily want to talk to you. And then everybody's parents' feelings hurt because they don't talk to me like that anymore. But you have to invite that. You have to invite that, though, and not be judgmental. They're very sensitive at this age range. And so everything they think is about them, even good, bad, and indifferent. They think it's about you. So if you say something, it's like, they don't want you to be hovery. They don't want you to know everything. But if you just make a habit of having just a regular, and not an interrogation, just a regular conversation. I used to have to say to my nephew, because he's very mellow. He's just so chilled out. Oh my goodness. To this day, the boy is about to be 18. I still have to say this now. And I've been saying this since he was like 9. I say, how was school today? Good. Nope. No one words. Don't say good, fine, okay. I need a whole other word, right? And it would force him to be like, exciting? Like, then he would have to pick up something. I'm like, okay, well, what was exciting? Like, they didn't want to give it to me. But if I said, well, what's that about? Well, so-and-so said the thing, I ain't like it, or my teacher did it, whatever. Like, you get a little bit more, right?
Okay.
So it's not interrogation, it's just regular thing. So if you're all watching the news, maybe they got their headphones in. I don't know what happens. Also, sometimes we have to get into things they are into, even though we can't say we hate it.
Oh my God.
Like music, it's hard, even for me. Music, some of the music, it's not my music. I'm like, what is this? But then I sound like old people. They used to say the same thing to us, right? What is that music they listen, right? I'm like, I don't want to be that person. So I might listen to something. I'm like, what you listening to? Let me listen to it. I want to play it. They're like, oh no, because it might be cursing in it or whatever. They don't want you to know. Please, I know it was cursing in my music when I was your age. Don't worry about it. Just let me hear it. Why you like this song? What's so, you like this person, it's your favorite, like just kind of the normal day-to-day stuff.
I need to be better at that. I mean, my kids, when they try to show me stuff, first of all, I don't get it. I don't want to watch people play video games. Like, why are you watching them play video games? But sometimes my husband is very good at that. He is very good at being into what they're into. And I'm just like, oh, wow, fall asleep at every movie. I'm sorry. But I try, I try to get into it. But I like what you said about being curious about who they are and what they're into. So I'm going to be more purposeful about asking that. And I do try to ask that about their school. To me, I'm like, okay, that's an easy way in. Like, okay, you can't say good. You can't say one word, or tell me something that made you laugh, or what made you upset today. Yeah. Or why was it boring? Like my son came in and was like, oh, it was boring and terrible. And I'm like, why was it? Because I was coughing a lot, and my teacher asked. So I get that with school, but I want to expand that into other, as his interests expand, I want to be more curious about that. And I like how you said, be curious about it. And not necessarily look at it in the way that, just as you would be curious about other people. So
part of that too is not taking it personally. Don't take nothing personal that's about to happen in this whole time. Okay. Because when they don't want to talk to you, it ain't about you. And you just feel so hurt. Like, what? Like, they want to stay in that room all the time. Like, that's my nephew in there all the time. Right. And so, invite him and be like, we can ready to do this. Let's watch this movie. Let's watch something. You want to watch something? Go on dates. Just me and you. What you want to do? If you know what your child likes. I know one of the things you were asking about is like, how do we keep them motivated? Right.
Yes.
Like, they like what they like. They might not like what you like. And I think that also hurts parents' feelings sometimes. It's like, but they not you. So it's okay that they are into it. I don't get why people watch people play video games on YouTube either. That might not be the thing I'm gonna do with you, because I don't want to do that. Right. However, if you tell me that you want to go to the movies, or you tell me you want to go to the mall, they might not want you to go to the mall, but you tell me something, we can do that.
Do something what I'm saying? You like to eat. Let's go out to eat.
Let's go eat. That's the thing. My nephew and I, we go out to eat, and he loves Busboys and Poets. So so he's had expensive taste for a long time. This 5-year-old said for his 5th birthday, I will never forget this. His 5th birthday, he said, I would like to go to Kobe. The steakhouse. Yes. So
that's my daughter. She was like, I would like, for my birthday, I would like 2 lobsters. And so I was like, what? I was like, well, she was like, well, can we just, that's what I want. I was like, okay. Like, I mean, it is your birthday, but it's not gonna be an everyday thing. But okay,
that kind of thing. Those little things too. I don't know why I did it, but when he was 5, I made a big deal, because 5 is, I don't know why 5 is a big deal, right?
Milestone.
But I took off work. I came over. We did. In fact, his birthday's in the summer, so no school, right? And so we made chocolate chip pancakes, and every birthday we make chocolate chip pancakes to this day. Birthday, he's about to be 18. Chocolate chip pancakes. So he expects it. He's like, Auntie, where we be going? Now we go buy chocolate chip. We just go somewhere where there's chocolate chip pancakes. But it's a thing. It's like
the same thing.
Yeah, so little things like that create a lot of relationships. It don't have to be major or overthought. And even if you just pick up on something you notice about your teenager or your preteen, you're just like, that's the thing I can get with. Let's do that.
Okay.
Or create ritual. I know, especially for Black families, rituals in our DNA, we don't realize it. But create ritual is important, because it becomes the thing that we do and we know, and it's a part of who we are. So
I love this. I feel so, first of all, I feel hope, which is good.
Please have hope.
I feel more educated, right? I don't feel like because when you're in it, you feel like you're doing everything wrong. Like I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. And
most of the stress comes from yourself. Yeah. Most of the stress does not come from the kid. Most of the stress comes from you and what you do in your head. And as a parent, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be, like, I get it. Parenting is here. It's a big job. It's an important job.
Yes.
So I get the pressure. The one thing I want to say too is, during this time, this adolescent time, do less critical commands and more critical thought. So we want to tell, this is part of that management versus guidance. right? So when you said, go put that on, you said, go do this. So in this age, you want to say, okay, here are your options. 12, 13, middle school, here's your options. Pick from that. You're teaching them how to think for themselves, also honoring that they're coming into their own, whatever they like, right? As they get older, 14, 15, maybe they're 10th, 9th, 10th, whatever, you're like, okay, what would you like to do? How would you like to handle that? Like, that's a good question. How would you handle that? If something's going on, like things happen in life, families, people, not necessarily grief from death, but like just things happen, right? So let's say somebody breaks into your car. You're like, dang it, I would process that. What would you do if somebody broke in your car? Because also you want to know how they're thinking. Like, you have no idea what they're thinking if you don't ask them, right? Or how would you handle this situation? Or maybe there's an argument between aunt and uncle, auntie so-and-so, uncle at the cookout or at the dinner, Sunday dinner. What would you have said if you was, did you see them fussing? What did you think? Like, and some people leave kids out of that, but they were there and they saw it.
So here's a question that comes out of that.
Yeah.
How do you, when they're older, right? What is an effective way to like punish them or like reprimand? What's the best way to correct them, right? So that they know they've done something wrong and there needs to be repercussions for that thing.
Yeah.
How do you do that with teenagers?
So I do think that, one, you do have to know your kid. You have to understand your kid's personality. I've never gotten a beating in my life, a spanking in my life, because I didn't need that. Child, you looked at me wrong. I was like, I'm sorry. I just fell apart, right? I was over. Whatever it was, I wasn't doing it no more. I didn't like that. And so when you have a kid like that and you it diminishes it diminishes them, and it diminishes your relationship, because then they don't trust you with them. And so it's not a blanket way to do things, because you got to know what works for your kid. That's what I'm saying. And so the other thing is, what's the goal of whatever the situation is? Is this a teachable moment? Yes, you need to know that there are consequences for actions across the board, always in life. Do I need to punish you though? Like, so, I think let me just say this, as Black parents, what we've gotten generationally, and this is gonna sound extreme to some, but it's really true. At one point, Black people were trying to survive. So harsh, quick reaction. And that harsh, quick reaction has traveled through us generationally. And we're like, and some of us at this age, we're just like, well, we realize we don't need to do all that, right? But it came from a place. And so we're not really thinking about, and even our thought about relationship versus control of our teenager comes from that. We're just trying to keep you safe and survive, right? And so that's still a thing for Black people. Let's be real. We're still trying to keep them safe, and we're still trying to survive, right? However, we can do that differently. We have tools, we have different things that we didn't have then, right? And so when you think about, it's like, what does the consequence need to be for this kid to get the point I'm making? So if my child is treating someone poorly, if you joined in picking on this little kid, then you about to do so much community service so you can understand how to treat people, and that some people are not like you, and some people you have
That's
more
great.
than others. You are blessed to have this. Some people don't have that, and you don't have, and some kids don't have it. You know what I mean? Like,
Amanda, that's good. That's good.
You know what I mean?
It's like you have to be creative with, I like
all about what you want them to do. What is it that you want them to get?
Linking the
not about the
punishment. Because I was like, what's she gonna do? If she's treating people poorly, what do you do? I was like,
let's learn how to treat people. Let's learn how to treat people.
I love that.
Go serve some people so you can treat people well. Go serve some people. Understand that you don't have to have the resources that you have. You don't have, so those are lessons. Those are life lessons. So it's less, I would say, less about punishing because you did something wrong, then
Yeah.
what is the lesson from this situation? Sometimes they get the lesson naturally. So sometimes something happens. So, I don't know, kids fight and spit into things. If you popped off at the mouth and somebody popped you in it, well, look like you learned. I don't need to punish you. That busted lips, probably punishment enough. Like I just go, oh,
but you know what? And I think the way you think about the way I have, or the way I was punished, is that you take away the thing that they enjoy, and that is the punishment. And it's like,
it don't really work that much.
It don't, honestly, because you know what? With my son, and I'm talking about him because he's older first, but my daughter is the same. They're not the same. They're not the same people. We cannot even talk to them the same way. They're very different.
Yeah.
But my son has never, like my husband and I talk about this all the time. When we take things away from him that he don't like, he'd be like, okay, here you go. Oh, you want to take all my toys? Here you go.
Here's all of them.
Yeah. So that it doesn't really work for him. And that's what he says all the time. My husband's like, well, you could take his phone, but he don't care. He doesn't. Exactly. He will just do something else. But I like making the connection of, okay, what do you want them to get out of this? You want them to be kinder, more compassionate, more this, than the quote unquote punishment or repercussions are something related to that, are the outcomes.
Yes, connected to whatever it is that occurred, like this blanket cross. First of all, they know you gotta be one step ahead of them. Let me just be clear, because they know they just want to take my phone. So let me just hear, right? They already know what you're gonna do, right? So that's why I gotta keep them on their toes. I'm gonna tell you something. My cousin was masterful at this. This I'm gonna tell this quick story because she just Cosby Show. I used to call her Cosby Show because I came to her house one Saturday. It was quiet as I don't know what. I said, where are the kids? Right? So she had two kids. They're about 4 years apart. The son was older. He's about 14. Said, Trey out. He with his friends. Okay. Where's the little one? She was reading an Essence magazine on the couch. Okay. Let me just tell you how cool she was with this thing. She was like, oh, she in jail. Excuse me? She's in jail. This girl was 9. Please explain. I don't understand. So they went to the beauty supply store. This one wanted some fake nails. She was told no. She stole the nails. She put the nails in her little purse and went on out the store. Now they paid for stuff. So when they went through the thing and the alarm went off, the man said, go ahead. Because she just paid. She didn't know the little girls got these nails. So my cousin said, thieves go to jail, sweetie. When you steal, you go to jail. This woman stripped this girl's room down to nothing but a bed and a nightstand, and put all her stuff in the bins and put them in the basement. So she was in jail for the weekend. She was in that empty room, and she could not come. She came out for 3 meals, and she had 20 minutes in the backyard for recess, and she went back in for the weekend. She said, this is what happens. I can't actually send you to the jail. And she tried. She scared her a little bit because she lived down the street from a 7-Eleven, and the cops used to sit at the 7-Eleven. So she walked up to the 7-Eleven with the cops. She said, this girl stole some nails from the... And she's like, Mommy, you gonna put me in jail? This is what happens when you steal, right? Yes. It was just perfect. It was perfect. Her son stole some money from the neighbor once, and because she's smart, she made him cut everybody's grass for the rest of the summer for free in the block. And she made him wear, if you're familiar with the Scarlet Letter, she made him wear a t-shirt with a big red T on it the whole time. And people were like, what is the T for? And he would have to say, I'm a thief, I stole the money. Like,
oh my gosh. But yeah, I think
like she was super creative.
And that's you know what? And it's first of all, I love these ideas. But also what it makes me think about is that parenting is an active thing.
It's active.
That's why
I said you can't do less. You can't do less because they're older.
Because it takes energy to strip a room. It takes energy to, which is why I be like, why y'all be having these babies late? Because you need all the energy you can. but I, if you want to have babies late, that's great.
Sure, I get it. Yeah, you're right.
But let me tell you, you're gonna be tired though. But yeah, I think that it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of thought and patience. And I have oh my God, I feel like I could talk to you forever. In fact, I feel like I should have you on speed dial so that when I am in the midst of it, I could call Amanda. I need you to come over. No, but this has been a
Yeah.
great conversation. You have been, made me think about things differently.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to practice what what you
Yeah.
have taught me today. And then I always look at people who have raised kids, like with genuine, like who have raised the type of kids that I wouldn't mind my kids being,
Yes.
and I'm
Yes.
always like, how did you do that? How did you do that?
Yes. So I
Seriously.
know we got to wrap up, but
Yeah.
that point, there were three things. Because you said something earlier that I want to say really quickly, and I never addressed it. You talked about how do you talk to them about sex?
Mm-hmm.
You just tell them. Let me be clear. Telling children about sex does not make them have sex.
Right.
Not telling them does lead them to listen to their friends who know no more than they, and
And is
that
it,
is dangerous.
when you talk about sex, do you keep it to the mechanics? Like this is the biological thing that happens with sex, or do you get into the emotional and the pleasure of it all? Like I
I think
always,
at some point you do have to get
yeah,
into
at
that.
some point.
As
Mm-hmm.
they again, it's a
Continuum.
gradual thing,
Yeah.
right? So early on, I mean, I think if your child doesn't know about sex by 9, you need to get that together because they other people know around them.
Right.
And
Right.
so and I know people have talked to their children as young as 5, very mechanics, very because they ask where does baby come from and they don't lie.
Right.
You don't
Right.
make up a story about that. Um they just kind of give them very, very baby version of what happens in real life. And so, but by 9, 10, you're talking about a 4th, 5th grader about to go to
Right.
middle school. They should understand the mechanics. And you could, whatever your point of view is, people who are Christian might say, this is something you do when you get married. That's your values that you are imparting on your children. Whatever that looks like for you, you can add that to the conversation as they start to have relationships and date and have little boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
those are conversations like what do y'all do when y'all hang out? How are you treating her? Like because they
Yeah.
might say, or you might say that's one of those common conversations, like, how's so and so?
Right.
I asked my nephew, how's your girlfriend? How's she doing? And he might say, she upset because her dad, blah, blah, blah. Really, what did you say to that? I was taken aback, brought tears to my eyes. I saw my nephew at the prom, they went to the prom recently or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught a moment. Nobody was paying attention, where she had hair in her face. And
Mm-hmm.
he was like moving her hair. And I was, oh Lord, look how he cares for her. Like it was just a thing.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you don't know if that's in there or not unless you
Right.
see them do it.
Right.
So
Right.
I think you need to have candid conversations about sex and expectations, but not from a point of don't do this, because then they're gonna just go do it. Like
Right.
it's let me tell you, and also be open to them asking questions about you. That is scary for parents. They're like, oh, I don't want to tell my child about me. But they need to hear the truth,
Right.
it should come from you, because then it's gonna come from
Right.
somebody else, and you
Right.
can't control that. Like,
Yeah.
you set the tone. The other thing you had asked about, how do you know there's signs of trouble? Like, how do you know your
Yeah.
kids?
That was
How
gonna
how
be
do
my
you
last
know?
question. Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the biggest sign for a teenager, and it's hard, but the more you're in relationship, the more you have conversations. Knowing your kid is important, like how they are. Like, are they
Mm-hmm.
generally moody? Are they, whatever?
Right.
Because if you see some starkly different behavior, I mean, like, what is that? What is that? I mean, just
Right.
really stark things, or a sudden grade drop is also like a
Mm-hmm.
plummet is an indication of something. It probably
Right.
has nothing to do with schoolwork, or
Mm-hmm.
there's something else happening, environmental, or you know what I mean? Like, parents often
Right.
miss that one. It's like, if a kid is generally passing and for this quarter they went from an A to a D, but their
Mm.
GPA is still okay. Some parents will be like, I don't know what's going on, but their GPA is still good. Mm-mm. You don't just go from an A to a D. Something occurred. Something
Right.
happened. And it might be emotional. I might wasn't into it because maybe my girlfriend dumped me. I don't know. Like,
Right.
those types of things. But
And
just,
so,
they're humans. So just, they're humans. They have
oh no, I can't hear you. What happened? Let me see. Oh, I can hear you now.
Can you?
I can hear you now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what happened because I didn't move.
Yeah, it's
you're,
probably,
okay.
but you were,
So I guess I was
so
just, yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
I
I
was
was
just
gonna,
saying that they're human beings. Sorry, they're human beings, and I think what is necessary or what's helpful, and I won't say necessary, is that you start to, as they gradually get more independence and they get a little more ability to be who they are, that
mhm,
you also start to see them not as the little one, and you start to see them because then that shifts how you approach them as
right.
well. Um, and
And
teenagers see a lot, so some hard topics are important to talk about. It's a lot going
yeah,
on in the world.
it's a
They
lot
know what's
going.
going on. What do they think about it? You know?
And so this is my promise. This is my last question. I keep
I'm
saying that
sorry.
we are over.
It's okay.
But how do you know when your child needs more help? Like if you should take them to therapy or, have them talk to somebody outside of you and you've done all that you can do and they need more help.
So first of all, if they ask for it, just take them.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely have had know of teens who have said, "I want to talk to somebody," and the parents are like, "You don't need to talk to nobody,"
Mm-hmm.
because they themselves may not
Right.
believe in therapy. Like, well, this ain't about you. That something's happening, and the fact that they said that, and children at this age in this era are more used to therapy.
Right.
It's a
Right.
normal thing it's more normal for them, so it's normalized now for their generation, so they might say, I want to talk to somebody, right? So first of all, yes. Secondly, if anything comes up at school, some again, things schools where they are most of the time. And so things start happening in school, they start to be aggressive, and then they're not typically aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to have them talk to somebody about what's happening. Sometimes they just don't want to talk to you.
Mm.
Um, and I've had enough teenagers in therapy to know that they will talk and they
Mm-hmm.
want to talk. That's another misnomer. People think that teenagers don't want to have nothing to do with you. They want you to love on them. They just act like they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're embarrassed by it, but they want it.
Right.
Every now and then. He did it the other day, his graduation party. At the end of the night, it was a few of us left. We had cleaned up. We were getting ready to go home. And my nephew came and he just laid his head on my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't gonna say, Auntie, I need a hug. He ain't gonna say that,
Right.
but he will come lay his head on my shoulder, and I'm like, okay, but you know, so they don't completely hate you. They hate your guts because they're
Right.
teenagers.
Right.
They want to be loved on, but they also want that space and that room to not be treated like a little person. Because that's the first thing. I'm not small anymore. I'm not. I
Mm-hmm.
can do this myself. I got this. Even though so you watch it, you're like, do you have it? Oh, okay. And so just make sure you got it for real. And then help, and if they don't, help them have it. Don't do it for them, help them have it. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
teaching them whatever it is that they're doing or into.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think again, starkly different behavioral things. If they're aggressive or they're really sad or they seem very depressed all of a sudden, or they don't like things that they used to like more recently liked, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. Certainly if a teacher says, I've been seeing this behavior at school and it's weird for him, um I would say, yeah, I want you to talk to somebody, especially if they're not willing to talk to you about what's going on. I always start with school counselor, and if school counselor suggests more, also times where there family huge family transitions,
Mm-hmm.
certainly separation, divorce, those types of things happen. New babies, if they're
Mm.
teenagers. My sister's crazy.
Right.
She got an 18 and a 4-year-old child.
Oh.
And so and she's not crazy. I love her. but
Yeah.
it's like, okay, girl, we're gonna start over. And so when they have transitions, life transitions, certainly grief and loss, if something happens at school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would also say have conversations with your preteens and your teen, and maybe even your little ones around things that are happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They paying attention. They know that Black people are getting killed by police. They know that young people, you know what I'm saying? They know,
Right.
especially I don't even say no more, especially your boys, because girls are getting treated the same as well women,
Right.
And so that conversation. I know that's a thing that Black parents have to have. That conversation is
Yes.
like how you navigate the world by yourself. What happens if a police talks to you or tells you to do whatever? Like those things. Now, don't just tell them what to do, but also get their opinion. Watch
Yes.
something like I watched When They See Us with my nephew, and we
Mm.
had to keep pausing it because it was so much in
It
there.
was
But
so
it was
much.
like,
Wow.
oh,
Mhm.
what do you think about that? And he was angry. We couldn't even get through the like. We got through the second. He was like, I need a break. Mm-hmm. I know you do.
I needed
Yep.
a break. I don't even think I watched the third part
I haven't
to
watched the
it.
whole thing yet either.
It's so
It's a
emotional.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So it's emotional. You know what I'm saying? He was angry. He was like, because he's looking at kids his age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being, assaulted and treated. And he's like, I can't. So,
Mm-hmm.
pay attention. Again, that's that active parenting. This is an active parenting time because you have to pay attention to what they're doing. And that's what makes it hard. It's a busy time. You got to be looking at everything. That's why this is not the time. This is why this is the time to stay home from work because you got a lot to pay attention to.
Remember that?
Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
be the I don't want to say be the cool mom. One of my good friends, her child's 35, but I watched their relationship and she talks a lot about what they did as he grew up, right? And I think I met him at 16 or so. And so just she's the mom everybody comes to. I watch to this day these 35-year-old people that he has accumulated in his lifetime, his friends, and
Mm-hmm.
they come to her house whether he there or not. He could be
Right.
somewhere across the world and they're like, I'm coming to her house and hang out. So that's how you get to know their friends though. Like who are they
Yeah.
hanging with? Who are they
Yeah.
spending time with? Invite them over. Invite your friends over. We can put something on the grill for you and your friends. Just you and
Okay.
your friends, you
Yes.
know. Yeah.
Okay. Amanda, thank you so much. This was so good. This
This
was
is
so
so
good.
fun. I can talk about this forever. I love it.
I could too, because I'm just like, tell me everything. Tell me everything. No, but I'm definitely going to take, this conversation. I cannot wait to watch it back with my husband, just because we are also very different parenters. We're very different people. And I think we have different strengths in different areas. So I think
Mm.
we would get a lot, out of this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us. How can people reach you, or is there anything that you want to share about, what
Sure.
you're doing? And if you want people to reach you, I know you don't have a practice anymore, but.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a PhD student now, but
So you're
so
busy.
I'm busy. But I do really enjoy this conversation, and it's an area that I will maintain. I don't have a practice, but one of the things I'm definitely willing to do at this point are like private parent coaching kind of things. So and groups too. Like I once went to somebody's house and it was like 4 or 5 of their parenting friends. They got together. They all had kids at the same age, and we had this kind of conversation, but they were able to ask more specific questions about their
Mhm.
specific situations, and so I love to do those. Certainly, and you cook some food, we can have a conversation about your kids, that kind of thing. Not so much one-on-one, but group
Mhm.
for sure. So if you wanted to have something like that, I would be down for that. I'm on Instagram. Best way to reach me now is Daughters of Winnie, which is all of spelled all out. Daughters of Winnie on IG. Just inbox me. I have a website that's being redone right now, so I don't want to send nobody to that. but once it's done, it'll be on my IG. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you
yes,
so
this
much
is
for
fun.
joining me.
Thank you. I love
Yes,
talk.
it
This
was
is great.
fun. And for everybody else, I will see you next time.